Seattle, Shop the Beat is back. Shop the Beat supports the economic recovery of small businesses, local musicians, and neighborhoods throughout Seattle. This program matches small retail businesses with local musicians to host free in-store performances during peak shopping hours to help increase foot traffic and sales for retailers and provide competitive pay for musicians who were significantly impacted by the pandemic. The City of Seattle Office of Economic Development is currently accepting applications from musicians and small businesses who are interested in participating. Apply for Shop the Beat at seattle.gov/economic development. Applications end December 1st.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on Rainier Avenue Radio App. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
Street Beat with Tony B. Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community. Street Beat. Street Beat. Who, Tony?
How would COVID vaccines work in your body? Here are 3 things to know. Number 1, a vaccine is basically a training session for the immune system. Vaccines teach the immune system to look for the key features of a virus. So when a virus does show up, it's ready to fight it off. Number 2, a vaccine gives your body a plan to recognize the virus. Then your immune system starts preparing by making antibodies, or fighter cells, that stay in your blood as protection in case the virus tries to invade. What this means is you get immunity against the disease without having to get sick first. Number 3, when enough people's bodies know how to fight off a virus, it has nowhere to go. That slows the spread. When people get a vaccine, we're able to stop the spread quicker and get closer to ending the pandemic. To learn more, go to covidvaccinewa.org. A message from the state of Washington.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue radio.world.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station.
This is Cindy Bray, the host of Heartbeat Radio.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star
This
Time.
is Paul Schneiderman today on the 73rd edition.
Hey, y'all, welcome to
Rainier
Traveler's
Avenue
Guide to
Radio.
Venus and Mars and Census from Alicia Ferry Von Mothers. Yes, don't be dirty.
Your home for information about the impact of the coronavirus.
Amongst many things that's difficult about this virus is that it's
been devastating. There are really heartbreaking stories of people who have.
There isn't anyone that isn't impacted.
Shutting our schools down, including all athletic programs.
Your first-hand accounts.
We got here just to check, and I found out that I was positive.
A lot of people who know me, I'm still the first person they know.
But it was almost like you were patient zero for South Seattle. Your stories of community coming together.
Partner very heavily with Tacoma Urban League, who is doing some amazing work in response.
We're doing things for small businesses. We're giving out loans for small businesses.
And so I think it's very important that we have leaders who feel the pressure.
I mean, I cannot tell you we're calling 20, 30, 40 members.
This crisis in our community, we've been working to address it.
Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
DJ Dirty John.
Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey, this is Sergio Cool. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We got you covered. Local impact, global press.
We broadcast. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our weekly coverage of the impact on communities. Our series. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again here. And then again, now we are aware of the fact that we are and more focused
kind of nonsense conversation we're having here.
The Neon Ghost Show. The Neon Ghost Show. Right here on Rainier. What's it? Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Right about now.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm so tired. I have to pee.
What's on your heart? Are you exhausted at the lack of progress for people of color in business, politics, and life? This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio. Each week, we explore this heart condition of the country that is affecting you and me. We have real conversations about what's necessary for change. It's time to change this dialogue. Will you join this Heartbeat weekly, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio?
Has your small business experienced property damage? Apply for the Storefront Repair Fund to receive a $2,000 grant to help cover storefront repair costs. The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing nearly $2 million to help businesses recover from the economic impact caused by damages to their storefronts. Grants will help cover costs such as broken windows, broken doors, broken locks, and etching on windows. Applications will remain open until all funding is awarded. Application assistance is available in multiple languages at 206-684-8090. For more information and to apply for the Storefront Repair Fund, go to seattle.gov/economic development.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Are you a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19? The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million to connect small businesses to operating capital. The Small Business Capital Access Program will lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans by paying down 25% of the loan principal. Eligible small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with a 4% interest rate to cover expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and supplies.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
It would be a tough time of year.
Good afternoon on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Juan Cotto, and the Executive Director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Mick Hoffman is back with us. Mick, good to see you again.
Good to be here.
Good. Boy, you got some busy things coming up. This is a busy couple of weeks for you.
Yep, we're headed to the back end of tournaments and starting winter sports, so it's a good time of year.
Fall sports are coming to an end, and for the first 11 weeks of shows that we've done, we've had an opportunity to discuss really the impact of athletics, and they always seem to culminate at different points of the year, and this one is the state championships for the highest priority of sports in Washington State. It seems football, and of course I'm wearing the the winners of the Apple Cup Saturday night. A number of great Washington State athletes participated in that game. And on both sides of the football, it was really exciting to see the University of Washington came out on top this time in an exciting game over in Pullman. And certainly we're going to be crowning some champions this weekend.
Yeah, 6 of them. So it's going to be exciting times.
Let's just go right off the first. Obviously, these games used to be played in the Tacoma Dome, and we had one location we played all of the games there over a 2-day period. Obviously, and we discussed that earlier in the year. The cost of running the tournament in the Tacoma Dome became a little bit too much. It wasn't the best business deal for the city of Tacoma and also for the WIAA, but opportunity presents new places for us to have our championships and space these championships throughout different locations. Where are we going to be this weekend?
We're at 3 high school sites. We're at Mount Tahoma, Tacoma School District, Harry Lang and Clover Park School District, and Sparks and Puyallup School District. So we've been there the last 2 rounds of state championships.
What is the feedback that you receive? Because, I mean, obviously you have certain fans and you have certain aficionados of sport, I guess, that feel, it's a special opportunity for the kids to play in these larger facilities that we have, our public facilities, whether it's Safeco Field, Husky Stadium, or the Tacoma Dome. But I have a feeling that the kids don't care where they get to play, where they want to play. This is a state championship.
Yeah, I mean, the state championship. Oregon plays out at Hillsborough Stadium, and they don't go to even their college facilities. It really depends who you talk to. We understand all perspectives on this. That for some of our players playing at Husky Stadium or where the Seahawks play, that's pretty cool. What a lot of people don't realize is we get about 15,000 total fans for all 6 games. So even at the 3A, 4A level, say we get 4,000 at those games. You put 4,000 in an 80,000 seat stadium, that's a very different feel than what you experience at a Seahawk game or a Husky game. And so, that's part of the decision. I will say, we understand with Tacoma and the Tacoma Dome, it wasn't just finances there. That was part of it. They have to be they don't get public dollars or at least general fund dollars. So they had, a concert for them pays the bills where they just try to break even with us. But their scoreboards are old and they're not updating them. The turf, has been there since 2007 or 2005, I think. So that needs to be replaced. And they did a beautiful remodel in there. If you've been there for a concert or anything or basketball, it's beautiful, but it doesn't work for football really well. It's 20-foot high walls. Teams that played, felt like they were in a box. The cheerleaders are cheering to a wall and not the crowd. So it's a very different feel for what it is. For us, logistically, being in a single site, whether it's Lumen or Husky Stadium or Tacoma Dome, would be a heck of a lot easier. The logistics of setting up and staffing 3 sites is a lot of work, and a lot of that falls on the school host. And so there's different challenges. We meet. We being Andy Barnes, our assistant director who oversees football, with the Washington State Football Coach Association's executive board. We meet with them the Saturday morning of the state basketball tournament every year. And their board is split on what's a better venue. Some of them who have played, who are coaches and athletic directors in the Metro, who have played and coached in the Kingdom. They've played and coached at Husky Stadium. They played and coached at Lumen Field in different events. They're the biggest advocates for staying where we're at because of the environment. It's loud. People are right there. They have easy access. We have other coaches who are involved that are like, hey, Husky Stadium's Husky Stadium, right? And so we get it. We understand. But they're not united on this. We always end the meeting with the comment, well, when you guys know what you want, then they'll give us a better idea of what next steps are. And all those points are valid. So we continue to evaluate. Our board is looking at it. Jen Cohen and the Huskies they put together a very competitive price point for us. They cut their costs significantly. The Seahawks didn't even bid to host it. They said they can't open their stadium for under $100,000 a day, and they don't have it in their budget to help underwrite that. And so it was. We didn't even have the opportunity to say no this year based on that. Jen Cohen then came back and said, we'll give you Friday and Saturday dates. the issue would be who plays at 10 a.m. on Friday. So we could, if we would have went there, somebody would be playing a state championship game 10 a.m. this Friday. Do we do that to the 1Bs because they're the smallest? Do we put the 3As there, East Side, because they're metro and they're local? Does that feel? And I was at a sportsmanship event this morning with schools out of the SPSL, and I talked to the athletic directors, and one who just, their team won the state championship last year. And I said, hey, this would have been our option. Would have you wanted to play at 10 a.m. on Friday? No, just immediate no. Like that, we can't do that. And so again, we talk to somebody else and they'd say, if it's at Husky Stadium, yes, we could. And so it's a coin flip. Our plan moving forward is that we have it in these sites this year and next year. And between now and June, we'll be working with our various coach association, our board, and athletic directors to determine, is there anything we want to change in any of our tournament formats for all sports? And then we'll go out for contracts next fall for the following 4 years and align it with our classification cycle. The Huskies could only guarantee us dates this year and next year. With the realignment possibility, who knows what's going to happen with the Pac-12 if Amazon comes through with these streaming rights. UCLA and USC might be back, right? I'm hearing maybe $70 million a year per school. We'll take that. We'll play anywhere. No,
there's still some big companies on the West Coast.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, UW's not sure if they'll be available even after next year. And so we'll continue the conversation because, again, you know, what Jen Cohen asked her staff to do, they delivered a viable option that our board strongly considered. If we can get a second site and have all those games on Saturday, or possibly go Friday evening and Saturday, you know, those are some options. I know there's a discussion, there's a group planning about renovating Memorial Stadium and making that a possible option. And so if we had two sites in the area, that we could consider that. So there's a lot of possibilities moving forward. We're hearing, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with Lumen Field with hosting World Cup in a few years. There has to be natural grass. So at what point do they shut that down? Do the Seahawks play at Husky Stadium again, which would eliminate a lot of dates at that facility? So there's a lot of unknowns. So we're hoping to go through that in the next year and be able to move forward. At the end of the day, you know, the teams that lose usually have more complaints than the teams that win. But we've heard from both sides, and some have been happy and some aren't. I think we would run into that. We had the same thing at the, you know, talking to Mike and Andy and others. We had the same thing when they played indoors at the Tacoma Dome. I mean, we've even gone back to them asking about configurations, possibility of turf. We've talked to some potential partners who may be able to help us with the turf issue. So we're continuing to shake trees. Our goal is, you know, we want to have every state tournament, whether it's bowling at Bolero this year or football at Clover Park, that it's an event that kids cherish for the rest of their lives.
You said something very interesting about the environment, and that obviously is the fans, because the players play for the championship, but all of us can't play. I mean, we're spectators for a reason. We're rooting for a team. We're supporting a young person that's there. And I like the analogy that you used. 4,000 people in one of those giant facilities seems like a little teeny tiny crowd, where one of the most memorable experiences I had at the 2019 game down at Spark Stadium, the 3A championship, which we covered here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, Rick Dupree and Edwin Bailey and I. What an exciting contest that was. There may have been 4,000 people at that game. It sounded like the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you, ironically, in that game, that's when Eastside got O'Day, right?
Yeah.
And
I was a neutral broadcaster at the time, being the professional that I am.
Well, ironically, the very next morning on Sunday, we had the Washington State Coach Association in our boardroom meeting. So they'd asked me to come in, and so I was sitting out. I'd gotten there, and a coach walked in. I'm new to the, you know, I was on the board, but new to the office. And I introduced myself to the guy who walked in with me, and it was Coach Cronin from Joey from O'Day. He's the defense coordinator. Ball went over the top, and they lost, right? So if anybody is going to be upset about the situation, it's going to be him, right? They just lost. I watched Monty after the game. I listened to him talk to his kids. I didn't know the man at all before that, other than what I'd heard about him, and I was so impressed with how he handled that with his kids. A tough loss, right? And East Side, great win, and they're having a good time. And so I asked Joey, I said, okay, tell me the truth. Like, what do you think about this high school venue? And he's the one who said, I played in the Kingdom. I coached at Husky Stadium. I've coached at Lumen Field. This was by far the best high school environment we've had. And he's the one who said that. So I've taken that conversation to explain. I mean, here's the guy who was the defense coordinator, just lost a state championship game. And within less than 24 hours, that's his perspective. So it tells me, one, he's a man of great integrity, to not make an excuse. But number two and so I said, well, tell me about your fans' experience. So he emailed me the next day and he said, I talked to my wife who was chasing two little ones around, and she said same thing. And her conversations with other fans. And what a lot of people don't understand is last year in those state championships, the weather was miserable. It was pouring rain. It was cold. And if we're at Husky Stadium or at Lumen Field, we're uncovered in those stands. There's no cover unless you're going to go stand on the concourse, which you're not going to see the game. We're going to be in the lower level on one side. That's all they're going to open up for us. That's all we need for the number of people we'll have. And so you're going to be uncovered. You're going to be paying concession prices at those fields as opposed to high school stadiums. You're going to most likely be paying to park, especially downtown. And so there's a lot of other things around the fan experience. Mm-hmm. But again, we watch, the Apple Cup this year over in the Palouse, but next year it'll be back here. There's major games being played. Seahawks just lost a heartbreaker, but a kid could say, I was just on that field. So we get that. And so we're trying to find that balance. And, some of these groups that are getting on those fields for some of these youth things, I'd venture to say I've been able to go watch a few of them. A lot of people still don't know who I am, so I can get in and out pretty easy without people knowing. And the environment of those are definitely different. And so, but again, it's a wide variety of perspectives, and we appreciate those. And we're going to continue to bring a variety of options to our board to help with that decision-making process.
This is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And he is talking about the state football championships that are being conducted this weekend to basically figure out who the champions are in the state of Washington. And we are talking about this because this is what we do on Rainier Avenue Radio. We discuss a variety of different issues. Today we're talking about what goes into the stories that our kids provide for us in the community. Sports is a major part of that. And when we talk about high school sports, there is so much that goes into it. Obviously, the kids are looking for a special experience. The coaches are looking for a special experience. When we read about college bowl games, the kids get these swag bags at the college level, and they're full with PlayStation 2s and shaving gear and all sorts of things. And we understand that high school sports is different from that aspect. But what does the WIAA do to make it a special experience for the kids to participate in the state championship?
I'm hoping people will see that we're dressing up the stadium quite a bit, sphere around the event. So we're hoping the Seahawks have told us that they're going to make some Blue Thunder available, maybe some of their dance team blitz, and that we're hoping to get some of their, have them be some honorary captains. So we're waiting on that confirmation still. Hopefully we'll hear good news here today, possibly tomorrow. We're going to do some things. We're working with some of our other sponsors around pregame festivities that we can bring in. And so those are things we're trying to do. The other thing that we've heard about is having the games too close together. So for the fan experience, we're trying not to stretch them out too much. You'll notice our games this year are at noon and 5. They'll give teams time to, have the locker rooms for the first and second game before and after. And that team that wins, it'll give them time to celebrate. We won't have to rush them off the field. They'll get to have a little more time. And the team that loses, for a lot of them, well, for all of them, that's the last time they'll ever be together as a team. And for those seniors, a lot of them, especially those that have stuck it out for 4 years at the same school, haven't bounced around. I mean, that's your family's kind of breaking up. It's like sending your kid to college and marrying off your kids. I mean, it's a very emotional time. Plus, you just lost state championship of all these dreams. And so we want to give them time to do that. And that is one where we're continuing to push our partners to see what else we can do to enhance that experience. But realistically, we want a game at a site that's clean, that plays well, the officials are the best that we can offer out there, and that the students get to decide the outcome of that game and nothing else. So, and if we can keep the rain away, that helps as well. So
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I am Juan Cotto. I should introduce myself. I am Juan Cotto. I am a voice here at Rainier Avenue Radio, the community radio station, our community radio station, your community radio station. And we are talking about youth sports. One of the exciting things about the state championship, obviously you mentioned the venues, is all of the people that work at the facility to put it on. And then I will say this, whether it's at the Tacoma Dome, whether it was at Mount Tahoma for track tournaments, or whether I've gone to the cross-country tournaments, you have an enthusiastic group of volunteers that welcome people to the game. And tell us how that works. Who is actually the folks that are working in those in these smaller venues? You said it takes a lot of work to put them on in all these separate venues logistically, but who are we getting to work those venues?
You know, a lot of them are people who are former players or coaches, athletic directors, family friends of those folks. So our schools host them, and so we have tournament managers, which are typically the athletic directors or other school district personnel. And, you know, we're giving them shirts, we're giving them a beanie, you know, maybe a small stipend for their time, but a lot of them are volunteers or very modestly paid volunteers that understand that they went, for most of them, either their own children or themselves went through that experience. And it was so special to them. They're trying to replicate that for others. So, you know, they're truly giving back. And that was one of the things I noticed last year. Last year was my third year in the office. It was the first year we ran spring sports. And so I try to get out to a lot of events and experience and see what's going on. So when people have ideas, concerns, what have you, I at least maybe have been able to see it, hear it myself in person. And as I went around the state last spring, I was shocked at how many people wore the WIAA gear, right? And, you know, people, as much negative stuff as we can have on social media out there, you know, people are proud of what is done because they're giving their time and creating this opportunity for students. You look at club sports, you know, there's nothing wrong with club sports, but they don't get the attention or the people at their events like we do. There's something special about school-based, community-based athletics. And so they're individuals either working in schools or formerly working in schools or connected to people that way that want to come out and help. And cross country, we had over 200 people working in Pasco. At our state track events, we'll have 250 in Tacoma. At these games, we'll have upwards of 50 people working the events for meeting the team. So when we talk about how do we make it special, we try to greet them, we try to get them off. In Yakima, they're hoteliers. They host a spaghetti feed before the first night of volleyball and basketball for all the teams. So all the teams come in and have a meal together. It's awesome. And so we're trying to do that. It's a little harder with football just because of logistics. So we try to do that as many events as we can.
Mick, you talk about the average attendance at some of the venues about being 4,000. It seems to me, and I don't want to date myself, but I can. It seems to be in the mid 1970s. High school athletics, particularly not only in Washington State, but certainly in other areas of the country that have urban areas, the state championships, high school athletics, prep athletics certainly was a major attraction. Yeah. And I've heard stories of games at Memorial Stadium that there were 15 and 16,000 people there. I think the mayor of Seattle, Bruce Harrell, he played in a game with Garfield, I think Blanchette. And I mean, it was standing room only at Memorial Stadium. Now, I mean, to go to a game and to see almost any fans there, and that also includes the student bodies. What is the WIAA doing to attract fans back to those venues, or is that something that you guys have been looking at?
Yeah, I mean, we have a very vibrant social media platform, and we have almost 55,000 followers on our app, and between our different platforms, well into the hundreds of thousands that we're continually sharing information and trying. What we're working on now is tell the stories of individuals that will touch people's hearts. Because back in the 70s, late 80s, you know, we had Monday Night Football. Right. We might have 1 or 2 games on Sunday and a college game or 2 on Saturday. And now we can stream a game almost every night, right? And in addition to all the other entertainment that's out there. And so there's so many there's so much competition for people's eyeballs and time, and people can go back and get it. So that's what we're doing. We use the streaming services. Rainier Avenue Radio, you guys do a great job of promoting and highlighting Metro, especially Metro area sports. So we're continuing to increase that marketing and keep it out in front of people. We try to keep our prices cheap. So, okay. So, like Pablo, we had the #1 draft pick, and you could have paid $6 or $7 and sat courtside and watched him for a couple years anyway, right? With COVID interrupting. And so we have to do a better job of making sure people understand that and what's available, but just continue to promote.
We will be right back to talk about the transition that occurs between fall sports and winter sports on your community radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.org.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.
PrEP is a daily pill that can significantly reduce your chances of getting HIV. And typically, it takes a trip to a physician to get it. Now, you can visit select pharmacies, get tested on the spot, and walk away with your first month of PrEP. Plus, you'll also walk away with a $50 gift card after you complete your pharmacy visit. It's easier than ever to protect yourself from HIV. To find your nearest participating pharmacy, go to doh.wa.gov/PrEP now. From the Washington State Department of Health and Public Health, Seattle, and King County.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at the local Filipino community, PhilAm Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in, PhilAm Radio, every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on RainierAvenueRadio.org.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Are you a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19? The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million to connect small businesses to operating capital. The Small Business Capital Access Program will lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans by paying down 25% of the loan principal. Eligible small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with a 4% interest rate to cover expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and supplies.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome back to WIAA Primetime. I'm Juan Cotto, voice on Rainier Avenue Radio, our community radio station, your community radio station. We're at the historic Columbia City Theater, and boy, we always have a good time here. If you like politics, Rainier Avenue Radio has it. If you like music, Rainier Avenue Radio has it. If you like talk, and we know a lot of you out there love to talk, Rainier Avenue Radio has a variety of different talk and some things that I have no idea what they're talking about, but they sure are enjoying talking about it. So please tune into Rainier Avenue Radio. It's such a fun experience. I'm here with Mick Hoffman, who is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And one of the things we talk about is telling the story of our children. And our children are able to go out and participate in athletics. Mick has dedicated his life to that. I certainly have participated and coached and have worked to bring the story of those games to many of you. And this Saturday from Sparks Stadium in Puyallup, 12 noon here on Rainier Avenue Radio, you will be able to listen to the coverage of the 3A state championship game. The Eastside Catholic Crusaders are taking on Yelm High School. Yelm defeated Bellevue last weekend in a very, very close and exciting game. Yelm is loaded this year, so this is not going to be a cakewalk. And as a matter of fact, Yelm is the #1 team in the state. So all of us here in the Seattle area who are so used to seeing O'Day at Eastside Catholic and Seattle Prep and Garfield seem to run these state championships, Yelm is putting their big Y up, and they're going to put a big hurdle in front of the Crusaders, and they're going to see if they can take them on and win this state championship on Saturday, December the 3rd. That is going to be at 12 p.m. Pacific time, live from Sparks Stadium. So if you get an opportunity, please, we look forward to bringing that game to you. Mick, we are now transitioning from the outdoor activities of cross country, the outdoor of football and golf, and kids playing those sports that started in the warm August days. And of course, this year, the warm August days turned into September days. Then they turned all the way through October days. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful weather. And then the weather starts to turn a little bit and we go indoors. And so tell us about the sports that are available for kids to participate in during the winter time.
Yeah, well, we lead off with bowling and gymnastics, and then we get into some basketball and wrestling. So we have quite a few. It's our lowest participation numbers. Most of those are cut sports, and so not as much opportunity. We have swimming going on. So less students participating, but probably our most challenging season because everything's indoors. Very emotional around basketball and wrestling. Fans are close. So luckily, we have leagues doing a great job. I was down south in the South Puget Sound area this morning at a sportsmanship summit that was being put on by the SPSL 4As. And so a lot of people are working at it, just trying to figure out how can we compete, like really, how can I beat you? But at the end of the day, we still respect each other. And that's really what this should be about. We should, fight as hard as we can within the rules. And at the end of it, we have a winner, we have a loser, we have a tie, we're playing soccer. But if we're playing basketball, somebody's going to be a winner, somebody's going to be a loser. Wrestling, there's going to be a winner and loser. And at the end of it, we shake hands and we walk away with respect for each other for how we compete. And we go get ready for the next fight coming down the street.
You touched on it, the B sport, basketball. My longtime friend Darby Haskins, the athletic director at Nathan Hale, always said his agenda was filled with 3 B's: buses, budgets, and basketball. And that seems to be the primary winter sport. But obviously, you mentioned wrestling, you mentioned bowling, and some of these other activities. What do we do to encourage kids to participate? You said they're cut sports. A lot of kids probably play the sports on club teams and other avenues, but the high school experience is still important. And what do we do to create a good, meaningful experience for our winter athletes?
Yeah, there's a lot of attention because it's almost all in the gym, right? We got the pools in a few other locations. And so schools do a really nice job of kind of wrapping around that and making that the focal point of their school for the winter. We are working right now with the girls on adding a classification in wrestling. So that's going to be split this year. So there'll be 2 classifications in wrestling because of the growth of the sport. And we're hearing more and more that I know the Metro's been adding some. The East Side is adding quite a few women's teams. So what we're trying to do is expand what we already have. In addition, we'll be kicking off esports in January as an association. And so there'll be another opportunity for students. Hopefully, what our goal is we draw a different student than we already have. But at the same time, we get that quarterback playing with the kid who's walking the hallway that they would never cross paths otherwise, that end up being on the same team and try to help build some of that community in the schools. So we're trying to find what are creative ways that we can draw in different students and at the same time make sure that we have buses available, that we have officials available, and students get to play what they love.
You mentioned the proximity. As a former high school football coach, most of the comments my wife and family heard, I didn't get to hear a lot of them. What makes basketball so special, and I got, of course, wrestling with everybody sitting right up on top of you. And that, of course, obviously puts pressure on the athletes, it puts pressure on the coaches, but it puts pressure on the officials. And I was wondering what is the state of the WOA, the Washington Officials Association, and how are we doing at encouraging people to come in and participate in this very, very, very important part of athletics?
Yeah, they've done a really nice job of promoting officiating. We're working with the Seattle Sports Commission to try to find a way with our universities, colleges in the area, and our pro sports to promote it a little bit on a wider spectrum. But internally, they're getting out. Some of our associations are talking about their highest recruiting years in quite some time. The issue is that they're not going to be ready for varsity level. So they're going to be doing those freshman JV, which is where we have a lot of our worst behavior, honestly, by fans and parents in particular. And so that's what we need some help with is, if parents got to think they can do it better, we got a spot for them, right? And come on out. We're willing to train you up and get you out there and you can show your expertise. But to cut, especially some of these younger kids that are college age or even high school age that are going out there, maybe their first job, about 80% of officials leave before their second year is over. And if we can keep them 3 years, we got them. And so that's that. It's kind of like reading. If a kid can read by third grade, we know their chance of graduating is much higher. So that's why schools are pushing so hard there. Officials is 2 years. If we can hang on to them for 2 years, they're probably hooked and we got them forever. And, I heard an official, an example of what they're doing is they're bringing officials out to a lot of these sportsmanship summits. They're coming out and they're saying, hey, I'm an athletic director and I officiate. Hey, I help run a blood bank, serve my community, and I officiate. So, okay, I missed the travel. Well, why'd you travel? Like, don't be mad at me because you travel. Like, I got a regular job. I'm not out here to hurt kids. I'm out here to make sure this isn't PE, that it's actually a competition. So they're trying to humanize officials in that way. And at the same time, they're using them to recruit. And I've seen a couple great examples at these sportsmanship summits where they equate coaching to playing. What was cool about playing? Well, your teammates. You're telling me a story about your son. He's loving being part of the program. And why is that? Well, you got some structure. It's competitive in practice every day, even if you're not getting to play as many minutes as you want in a game. And you're making friends that are going to be a lifetime. And that's the same thing that happens to officiating. Those guys get all juiced up to go out that's a competition for them to be as perfect as they can. And so they're doing a really good job of finding officials who can relate to students and to get them out there in front of kids to be able to, again, grow our own, but it's going to take some time. So in the meantime, the average age is 56, 57 years old. A lot of them in their 70s, and they don't need to do it. They don't need the money. But going back to our volunteer question, they're so vested and see the value of this. They're not out there to hurt kids. I mean, I coached a lot of games. I've watched thousands of games. There's very few times where I felt like an official was doing something intentional. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but most people don't get up every morning wanting to hurt kids, and officials are no different.
No, once again, I think that it is such an important role. I think sometimes the parents, I think sometimes the fans, I think sometimes the coaches forget that, number one, they are volunteers, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's doing it for the paycheck.
I think
not. I think number two, I think that they are fans of the sport and they're tremendous community leaders that way. And then also, as you said, the connection that they have with each other. And many of the, I want to say, I got to be honest with you, Mick, all of these guys seem to take it very seriously. They go to the clinics and they work to become better officials.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we miss in terms of officiating.
Yeah, I worked with officials in the Official Association as an AD and district administrator and all that, but being in the office and watching Todd and Carrie and then getting to know their board members who are officials that have everyday lives, I'm amazed at how professional that is. It is incredible, the amount of time and energy that officials put in at their craft. If all our students did that, the quality of play would be even higher. I mean, we have some that do it, right? And it's the same thing with officials. And so we just need to give them a break and find a way. Parents love their kids, and we're kind of in this generation where, they can't do any wrong. And guess what? We all mess up. And you know what? I'm going to travel. I'm going to throw the ball away. I don't need an excuse that I got hand checked. I mean, my son was a basketball player and he drove me crazy whining at the officials all the time. It's like, instead of worrying about that, why don't you just handle the ball a little better or give it up or take a better shot, or, that there's things in our control. So let's control what we can control support the ones we can, because that young official who maybe messes up a couple calls at the freshman game, in 3 years, she might be a really good varsity official that will be there for the next 30 years. And thousands of students will benefit because I can keep my mouth shut when I'm upset that my son or daughter isn't doing what I'm hoping they were going to do. So, people got to relax and enjoy the experience, and their students will enjoy it. If you talk to students, the number one thing that takes the fun out of the game is their parents' behavior in the stands. And then listening to the parent on the ride home. And I get it as a parent. It's hard to bite your tongue. So do like I did. Go stand in the outfield away from everybody so you can mutter under your breath. Go stand in the corner of the gym if you can't handle it. But don't let it out and ruin it for your son or daughter.
Negative parents and negative coaches are the two reasons why most athletes quit athletics in the high school age range.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we promote Todd and Carrie? Who are Todd and Carrie? Because we like to promote staff around here.
Todd and Carrie Startle. Todd's the executive director of the association, and Carrie is the director's operation. You know, a lot of people don't realize they're a 2-person operation with a 1 part-time tech person that they contract with. And so the amount of work that gets done down there, I mean, they do great work, and they're vested in it. You know, Todd absolutely loves what he does, and he gets nothing but flack. I mean, he does not give very many attaboys. And Carrie's the grinder. I'll also say this: we run a little pick'em pool in the office for fun, and Carrie dominates Todd. So if you need NFL picks, don't go with Todd. Carrie's the one.
Let me tell you about Todd Stordahl. We did a prostate cancer promotion back in 2008. And when I was working at Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center, we came up with the idea of throwing blue flags. Oh, Kevin Griffin, the Ohio State University, Kevin, if you ever get a chance to see this, we hope you're well, and we love seeing pictures of your son on Facebook and what a great athlete he's becoming. And but Todd and Kevin, and we came up with this blue flags for prostate cancer, and they were throwing the blue flags, and we had the Pac-12 Pac-12 officials at the time. They wore these blue arm sleeves. And It was kind of cool. I was driving home, and the radio broadcaster talked about, hey, the officials wearing blue arm sleeves for prostate cancer. Told the whole story. It was beautiful. But an official in Hawaii, he decided to go to the doctor, found out that he had prostate cancer.
Wow. And
he said, you know something? He goes, this whole thing saved my life. So it's just incredible. And So Todd, a great show back then, and I'm sure that impacted a lot of people thinking about you, my man. And the incredible work that you do and continue to do for the officials in the state of Washington. Is there a transition? Is there a transition from fall sports to winter sports for you?
No, we do.
Keep on going.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing all our state tournaments. I was on the road for 3 weeks. Got to spend a lot of time watching our students compete at that highest level. But basketball games started this weekend. Unfortunately, I haven't made it out to one because we're dealing with eligibility cases. We just go from one to another. So, my role doesn't change much in that we're dealing with contracts and eligibility and lawyers and insurance and all that. But, I love getting out and watching. And again, most people don't know who I am, so I can sneak into a gym in my regular jacket and just enjoy watching kids compete. But no, for us, our staff is, Andy Barnes has football and basketball. So basketball's up and running. And for the most part, the schools run it early on. We deal with the eligibility piece. We answer the rules questions until we get later in the season and we start seeing ejections and, the unfortunate stuff. That's when we get busy. So
just tap into that real quick. A couple of different things before we move on. Number one, when a child is ejected in a basketball game, what happens?
So they stay on the bench if they can maintain their composure. If an adult can't take them out, right? Because we need them supervised, make sure they're safe. And then they sit out the remainder of that game plus 2 others. And so, 20% depending on the sport. Some sports have had higher ejection rates, so we've upped the penalty. But typically it's a couple games. So in football, if they got ejected, they miss that game plus 2 others. They can appeal with video evidence if they want to our office. And we take those very serious. We spend a lot of time reviewing them to see. We can't, if an interpretation of a rule is missed, we can do that. But if it's judgment, that's not our place. And so the students they get to keep practicing with their team. They just can't dress down. We want to keep them connected, right? Have them come back. We all make mistakes. And so especially for a young person, we don't want it to be a fatal mistake. If they get ejected a second time, though, they're done for the season. And so if they get ejected once, they need to be very cautious. And so that's, those are the parts of the job that we have to do just for the integrity of the game and the experience of everyone else. But those are really hard conversations to have with families and students. And, by that time they're remorseful, but, you got your opportunity. So we try to stay consistent. We don't want any gotchas. We try to make sure people know the rules. We try to over communicate and people make decisions, and we have to deal with those.
It was really interesting. I was talking to an SEC official one afternoon. We happened to be sitting next to each other at a Mariners game. I told him I was a high school football coach, and we had a long, wonderful conversation. And he refereed some of the great names in college football, including Bear Bryant, including Pat Dye down there in the Southeastern Conference at the time. And he said to me, in all his years, good calls and bad calls, Bear Bryant never talked to him.
Yeah.
He said guys like Pat Dye never talked to them. For you youngsters, Pat Dye, the legendary coach at the University of Auburn, Bear Bryant, the legendary coach at the University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide, before Nick Saban. Throw on a YouTube and you might want to figure out who they are. As a child growing up watching these men, I was completely intimidated watching them on TV. So they never talked to referees.
Yeah.
I said, well, what changed it? He said, Juan, national TV. He said, national TV's changed the players and the coaches. They see these guys going nuts. And then at the youth levels, they all go nuts.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, has in the fair play conferences, has that been discussed in terms of the behavior of and what they see on television and the expectations?
Yeah.
I had a coach tell me one time, you're at Highline, and Highline had a really good season. Hats off to Deontay Cooper and the Highline Pirates this year. But when I was there, it was a little bit different. He was like, well, you're in Highline. There's no pressure on you to win, so you don't have to yell at officials. I have to, I've got to try to keep this game in line.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how do we deal with the expectations of what, and how they see this balance on television, and then it acts out in our youth sports?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you see, you mimic, and that's a huge issue that we face. And so what we're trying to do with our sportsmanship and the just play fair is get to coaches. The most critical part of this is the coach, right? So how the coach acts is how they're going to expect their students to act. And then the other piece is the parents are going to play off of that. And as a former basketball coach, I was a young basketball coach, varsity coach, 28 years old. You get a job like that, you're not real sure of yourself. And you're fired up and you have all these big dreams. And, there's a lot of times my behavior was not good. And so I understand how you get there, but I also learned it doesn't help you. Right. And so instead of me spending my time whining at an official, I should have been coaching my kids, right, and helping them be successful, because that doesn't help them. And the bottom line is this old Bruce Brown proactive coaching line: the lowest level of behavior that you accept becomes the acceptable level of behavior. And so what we're saying is that kind of behavior is not okay, right? We're telling, and so we're holding the line on that kind of behavior. Like, well, the official, he blew 3 calls in a row. Great. And coach your kids up to play better, right? Like, you're not going to change that official. We take the officials out, and now you got PE. And so we're working with the officials. They hold themselves accountable through that. No different than a player who doesn't play well might lose their spot. A coach who doesn't coach well may lose his or her spot. Officials are under that same thing, but we don't have the officials turning and yelling at the coaches. And the other piece is this: if you're a coach, you don't want the parents yelling at you from the stands, right? We all have a 24-hour rule, right? 24 hours. I'm not going to talk to a parent until 24 hours after a game to let the emotions subside. Well, why don't we do the same thing as a coach to the officials? I mean, even if what we're pitching is, hey, we understand you can't do it in 24 hours in a baseball game or a basketball game. How about 24 seconds? Let a play go up and down the floor, and you might decide what you're so worried about isn't important. Get another pitch in, and it may not be as important. You're not going to act like a fool and have to own your behavior to your kids in the community that you represent. So, and the bottom line is this: if we took a quiz right now of the 6 state champion football teams last year and the 6 state champion basketball teams last year in each gender, right out of 18, we're lucky if we come up with you and I, right?
I know Bellevue was 3A.
Okay, there you go. So, but you go through that, and I do this all the time at sportsmanship. It's like, if winning is so important, this coach, you don't understand, I'm under pressure to win. You're a high school coach, right? You don't have multi-million-dollar contracts and endorsements on this thing. Your job is to help mold and model for young people, right? So how you do that in winning and losing is more important than winning and losing. Now, do we want to win? Yeah. I don't like losing to my 6 and 7-year-old grandkids and attack Uno, right? So I want to win. I'm not letting them win. We're competing. But I'm not going to lose my integrity with them or act like a knucklehead to them to win. I'm not going to teach them to cheat to win, right? Because your job, if you do that, you're going to lose at the end of the day. And there's far more than a win in December. Like, really, who knows who won most games last night? Most people don't know. So we put this huge emphasis on winning. At the end of the day, I've done this with other groups. Tell me the last 6 Super Bowl champions. It's one of the most watched events on TV. And most people can't name them past 2 years, let alone last year. So this huge pressure to win is an internal pressure. And I understand some ADs cave in and remove coaches. You don't want to coach there anyway. Go to someplace else. There's plenty of coaching jobs. Go someplace where what you believe in, you can execute, right? And the winning will take care of itself over time. And you'll win so much, you'll forget those wins too, because it just becomes part of the culture. But yeah, we got to get past this. I have to win all this pressure. And again, I felt it as a coach. But when I became an AD, I promised my coaches, we will never terminate you because of wins and losses. It'll be how much work you put in, how well you prepare your teams, and how you treat your students. That's what we're looking for in education-based athletics.
It's such a and boy, I mean, I just I'm getting goosebumps listening to you, just because simply sometimes I think that we don't get what is a victory correct.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. There are so many ways to get victories by coaching our kids that I think sometimes we forget the most important lesson of all, the most important victory of all, is creating young people to take their place in the community.
Absolutely. I mean, on Thanksgiving, I got a half dozen texts from former players, some who I haven't seen in person for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, just wishing a happy Thanksgiving. Hope your family's well, coach. Those are wins, right? These were not all stellar athletes. These were, my wife and I were out at a casino, went to dinner with some friends, and we were playing a little bit, and I'm in line to cash in, didn't lose it all. And this guy turns to me and he goes, "Mr. Hoffman?" I'm like, "Yeah." "I'm Jeremy." I'm like, "Tell me your last name." I mean, he's 39 years old. He turns to my wife and he says, "He left me when I was 16 years old. I left that job when he was coming through the program. His last name was Hoffman. I couldn't even remember his last name. That's how bad I am with names." And here's a kid who and all he wanted to do was just talk back. He was like he was 16 years old again. Tell me about what he's been doing, his job and all that. I mean, those are victories. And he didn't even actually play on my varsity team. He played on our sub-varsity teams. That's what this is about, right? Because now he is a member of that community. I played a very small part of that. And he remembered me and he took the time to say hi and he wanted to share what he had done with his life. That's a victory.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the Executive Director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, based out in Renton. And you're hearing some of the stories of a person who is a coach, a young coach, who grew into a mature coach, became an athletic director, and now oversees the entire thing. I am Juan Cotto. I am a host and personality on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world. On Saturday at 12 noon, the culmination of 3 months, actually 12 months, of hard work and preparation, 2 schools realizing their dreams, from Sparks Stadium in Puyallup at the WIAA 2022 3A Football State Championship. That's going to be on Saturday, 12 noon. The Eastside Catholic Crusaders will take on Yelm, and that's going to be an exciting football game. Number 1. Team number 2, Yelm, the number 1 ranked team in the state of Washington, and they are taking on the number 2 Eastside Catholic Crusaders, who had an exciting, and my hat's off to Dominic Dace and the staff over there, Wes Warren, my longtime friend and current defensive coordinator over at Eastside Catholic, and a brilliant football mind. And Yelm, of course, once again, the number one team in the state of Washington. Should be an exciting contest. I hope you will join us. We will have an audio-only broadcast here at Rainier Avenue Radio.world, but for a lot of people, that's perfect. Just turn it on in the background and listen to the game and see if Yelm can hold off this very, very, very game group of Crusaders. Mick, it was so exciting watching the Apple Cup and seeing so many athletes from Washington State. Obviously, it's always exciting to see. It's exciting to see Paulo Banchero, obviously, who's got up to a tremendous start in his career down in Orlando. Cade Otten, who played down at Tumwater, the grandson of legendary coach Sid Otten, and so many great athletes who got their start here in the great state of Washington, playing for high schools in the WIAA.
Yeah, I mean, 3 number 1 picks in the NBA, right, this last year. There's some incredible talent in the state, and one of our goals coming out of COVID is to find ways to highlight and promote so our students don't have to travel around the country to play in those types of events, that we can bring people here to Washington, bring them to our own communities and do that. So we're out seeking partners right now to help with that. Bodden, who is our ball sponsor, has a lot of energy around highlighting athletes in the state of Washington, being a Washington-based company as well. So we're hopeful in the next couple, 3 years that we can be talking about, as we're getting our feet back underneath us, some pretty cool events that will be accessible to everybody in the state of Washington.
As we were riding back over to the studio together, you were telling me about going to a 6-man football game.
Yeah.
And one of the legendary coaches that was there. Will you share that with us, just in terms of it's so great to hear how old coaches, of course, I guess that's me being a former coach, I should probably say, but they still remain close to the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, goes back to those volunteers. When they're done coaching, they're just finding ways to stay connected, because there's something that, has touched their heart at some time, related to that sport, and they want to keep giving back. And so some of our small communities were losing their football teams and losing homecomings and their identity in combines. And so they put up an amendment to play 6-person football, and we had over a dozen of them this year. It's like out in the street, everybody's eligible, but it's football. They're drawing up plays. You want an action-packed game. I went to the 8-man, like you mentioned. TJ Green, who's the chairman of the Macaw up there on the up in Nia Bay on the reservation. He's one of their assistant coaches now. Used to be the head coach. Invited me out, and it was an 80-24 game, and could have been 100. And the week before, we had one 90-80 something. And so if you like fast action, this weekend we have the game at Memorial 3A state championship. 1Bs are playing earlier, and the 2Bs are playing earlier as well. And there'll be some great football.
How big is esports going to be?
We're hoping that it blows up, because unlimited platform. So
Mick, we'll get to that question another time. Thank you so much for tuning in today on your community radio station. Our community radio station. This is Mick Hoffman Juan Cotto, and thank you so much for tuning in to WIAA Primetime.